Alrighty. I'm Easton Comer, and this is my project, my slideshow, presentation, whatever you want to call it. And honestly, I've really enjoyed making this presentation. It's been really cool for me to, study a specific religion that honestly I've never heard of before, learn a lot of different things, and honestly just kind of take away a lot of the good from a religion like this and honestly instill it into my life and stuff like that. And so, like I said before, I've never even heard of this religion, but it's a really cool religion. The name of it is kind of a tongue twister. And so during this presentation, if I kind of mess up with the name, the more I say it, like the harder it gets for me to say it, I guess. But so yeah, let's get into it. My presentation is on the religion Confucianism. And just kind of some of the lesson objectives, I guess, that I want people to kind of take away from this is that I really want people to be able to define the main teachings and values of Confucianism, kind of identify key figures, texts, and ideas, evaluate the legacy and modern influence of Confucian values on society. And we'll kind of get into who Confucian is and stuff, but yeah, that's kind of those are some of the things that I want. And I think that this kind of also includes, how his philosophy addressed, moral decay in his time, how his teachings were applied in governance and family life, and how these ideas continue to influence, a lot of Eastern Asian societies. And, I'm hoping that you guys will be able to reflect on these concepts in, making ethical decision making and leadership values today, because I think there's a lot of really good stuff that it teaches. So yeah. So who was Confucius? He had a really cool nickname that I like a lot. His name is Confucius or Kong Fuzi. So he lived from 551 to 479 BCE in the state of Lu. And during this period, I guess it was known as the Warring States period. His early life was honestly marked with a lot of hardship. From a very early young age, his father died, but he talks that kind of this hardship installed in him a lot of resilience, and it gave him a lot of a strong sense of self-discipline, I guess. But he was a very studious guy, but he studied a lot of history, and he studied a lot of rituals too, and worked honestly with a lot of teachers and government officials. He believed that moral integrity, education, and virtuous leadership was essential to restoring harmony to society. And through his students and also his personal example, he influenced generations of scholars and leaders and just a lot of different people. But yeah, during kind of his lifetime, China was fragmented into competing states and political corruption, war, social disorder, all those things. A lot of the ordinary citizens lived in a lot of instability and insecurity and a lot of fear. But Confucius, he observed that the breakdown of family roles and social hierarchy led to moral decay and social chaos. His teachings sought to address these problems through the cultivation of personal virtue, through proper social conduct and ethical governance. By emphasizing moral responsibility in daily life and leadership, he offered practical solutions to societal problems. So yeah, kind of the purpose, I guess, of Confucianism. It was a moral and philosophical system designed to create harmony within families, communities, and the state. Unlike a lot of the religions centered on a deity, it focuses on ethical behavior, education, and social responsibility. By cultivating personal virtue and fulfilling one's social roles with integrity, individuals contributed to a stable and just society. The ultimate goal that he had, I guess, is to promote harmony through moral development, demonstrating that ethical conduct leads to peace and prosperity. Let's see. But yeah, basically, Confucius identified disorder, moral decline, and a lack of social cohesion as critical issues in his society. Leaders often acted selfishly, or a lot of families neglected duties, and honestly, just the population at large didn't really understand, I guess, what their responsibilities were. They didn't understand kind of what it meant to be part of a society, and so there was you know, a lot of different people that just failed to have a society that was just and that was stable. And these failures led to a lot of social chaos and conflict. And so Confucius, he believed that the moral improvement of individuals could address these problems, providing the foundation for a well-ordered and harmonious society. And so the solution involves ethical self-cultivation and the fulfillment of social roles. Individuals should practice virtues like Ren, Yi, Li, Zi, and Zin, which I'll talk about more, to kind of guide their behavior. Leaders should govern by moral example rather than cohesion, while families honor their family duties. By fostering respect, compassion, and ethical conduct, society can achieve order and harmony. Confucianism teaches that societal peace starts with the ethical actions of individuals. And so the technique or path, Li, or ritual property, emphasizes proper conduct in social and familiar roles, or family roles, including ancestral veneration and everyday etiquette. Ren, or humaneness, involves compassion, empathy, and ethical concern for others. Together, they guide individuals to become a junzi. It's a superior person who embodies virtue and serves as a moral example. Through education, self-reflection, and consistent practice, these principles become part of a daily life and influence broader societal positivity. Yeah, and so then there's also a lot of exemplars and role models. But honestly, Confucius himself is kind of the ultimate exemplar. He was the one that was, demonstrating ethical behavior. His dedication to learning, and also his dedication to learning moral leadership. His students, who carried his teaching forward, they were able to serve as big role models as well, just because of Confucius and his example that he set before them. So a lot of the leaders guided by virtue, rather than force, exemplifying his ideals. Studying these figures helped students understand the importance of integrity, moral guidance, and lifelong learning, showing that virtuous behavior, can inspire social change. And so there were kind of 5 constant virtues. So the first one was Ren. And basically what Ren is acting with compassion and empathy toward others, putting their needs into consideration. The next one is Yi, which is, choosing morally correct actions, even when challenging. The next one is Li, which is following rituals, etiquette, and social norms to maintain order. And then Zi, which is understanding and applying moral principles effectively. And then the last one, I think it's pronounced Zin, which is being honest, trustworthy, and consistent in actions. And so, these virtues are interconnected, forming a foundation for, ethical living and societal harmony. And, these were instilled into a lot of the people, because these were kind of the 5 main, virtues that Confucius was constantly teaching, that also he was honestly showing people how to do these things. I guess he was, as I said before, he was the perfect example of it. And so he was really good at being able to do these 5 constant virtues. And so then the 5 key relationships that it talks about is, the ruler and the subject, the father and the son, husband, wife, older brother, younger brother, friend to friend. And basically what they taught is each relationship involves mutual responsibilities and respect. By honoring these roles ethically, individuals maintain harmony in families and society. For example, a son honors his father as a ruler leads with virtue, the son will honor his father, and the ruler will lead with virtue, promoting trust and a social stability. And so there's also these things called the Analects of Confucius. And basically it's just a collection of records, sayings, conversations, all these things that he had with his students. And, you know, the Analects of Confucius, it emphasizes ethical cultivation, moral leadership, and education. And there's a really cool quote that's in these things that it says, "To govern is to correct. If you set an example by being correct, who would dare remain incorrect?" And so I really love this quote because it's, you know, saying, you know, if you set an example of being correct, there's not going to be people who are going to be incorrect. You know, if you're setting that example, people are going to follow your example. You know, so this text or this quote provides, you know, guidance on daily conduct, leadership, and learning. You know, reinforcing that ethical behavior should guide every aspect of life. And so the practices and the rituals, you know, in Confucianism, it's really simple. It's education is central. You know, it cultivates moral understanding and prepares students to become virtuous leaders. One of the, you know, the five constant virtues, Li, you know, involves performing rituals such as showing respect to elders, you know, honoring ancestors, and maintaining family harmony. And these practices instill ethical habits, strengthen social bonds, and create an orderly society. You know, historically, Confucian ideas influenced the Chinese civil service exam system and governance, and it lasted over a millennium. And so kind of the legacy and modern influence, you know, it continues to shape East Asian societies, you know, influences education, ethics, leadership, and family structures. You know, Confucius, you know, he institutes worldwide, you know, it still promotes Chinese language, culture, and philosophy. My gosh. You know, modern debates examine the tension between traditional hierarchical Confucian values and contemporary ideas of democracy, gender equality, and human rights. You know, and understanding these influences highlights the relevance of Confucian, oh my gosh, no, in modern ethical and social and political contexts. And so, you know, in conclusion, Confucianism is not necessarily a religion centered on a deity, but a philosophy promoting ethical living, harmony, and social responsibility. By practicing virtues, fulfilling social roles, and setting moral examples, individuals contribute to peaceful, orderly societies. Confucius teaches remaining relevant today, you know, offering lessons in personal integrity, leadership, and education. You know, the central message is pretty clear. Cultivating goodness in oneself creates harmony in one's family, community, and nation. And so, you know, honestly, this has really been a cool experience to learn about this religion. And I hope that you guys were able to learn a lot. And hopefully you can take away some things that that my boy King Zhou, you know, or Kong Fuzi, that Kong Fuzi taught about. And yeah, that's the end of the presentation.